Mandukya Karika, Pranamantra. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangaye Stustuvagung Sastanubihi Vyashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti Nastakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. So, we have reached a great distance. We have covered lots of ideas in Mandukya Karika, and we are practically towards the end. This I've been telling in many talks now. Just to remind you what exactly we are discussing. Those of you who have been listening to all our talks, for them it may not be very difficult, but those who are listening from some point of our talk, you may find it slightly difficult. In case you have difficulty, you can listen to our first talk where we have discussed what Vedanta is. There we have discussed some of the main arguments used by Vedanta about itself and towards others. Here, we have been discussing how the idea that the world is real. Now, one big problem in studying any system of philosophy, any philosophy, whatever philosophy that might be, provided it is coming from a philosopher, a true philosopher, is that sometimes they use certain terms which have special connotations, a very special meaning. And those words have entirely different meaning in common parlance. So, because of that, it's very important that you understand what exactly the writer of a philosophy book means when he uses a particular word. Here we are using the word real. The technical term for it in our Upanishads in Vedanta is Sat. Sat means that which exists. So it should be translated more as existence. Does not matter. Even if we are using the word real for existence, it's good enough. Thing is, existence has a special meaning. Sat has a special meaning, and real has a special meaning. Now, when I am talking to you just like that, I may say that this pain is real because it's not imagined. For you also, this pain is real. But when we discuss philosophy, real means something that existed in the past permanently, is present now, and will continue to be present in the future. That means time should not limit it. Space should not limit it. It is here, it is there, it is everywhere. And even if you let go of space, which of course we cannot, but time is compulsory. For a thing to be real, for a thing to be sat, it must exist in the past, it must have existed in the past, continues in the present, and has to be there in the future. The arguments by the realists mean those who consider nature to be real, mind to be real. Now, if somebody, a materialist, says that the mind is real, mind is the ultimate thing, for example, science says that mind is real. Now, we have answered those questions, and some of these will continue. So, you'll find it very interesting. And when we were discussing the second chapter, I'll request my serious listeners to listen to our talks on the second chapter once again. In the second chapter, there are many arguments given against these materialists and realists. And those things are being consolidated now. The discussion, that is, arguments and counter arguments, These things were mostly directed at the simple fact that the dualists, those who consider two entities as real. For example, Sankhya, according to them, Purush and Prakriti, consciousness and matter, consciousness, energy, these are eternal. So mind becomes eternal. For Nayayika, Nyaya, which is a system of philosophy, according to them, mind is with Brahman, mind is with Atman. They consider mind to be conscious, Nayayiks. That is being countered here. And in verse number 29, it was said that the nature of Brahman, the properties that we understand of Brahman, is not with the mind. So you cannot say that these two are one and the same. Now, why? Begins our verse number 30. Anadir antavatvam cha sangsarasya na setsyati ananta anantata chadimato mokshasya na abhishyati. If you say that the world is real, if you say that mind is real, if you say that Prakriti is for real, to remind you once again, we are discussing something highly technical. In case you have difficulty understanding, which I don't think you will have, please listen to the talk once again. And if you have difficulty even after that, please listen to our talks from number one. If you say that world alone is real, that has been countered earlier. That's not acceptable. If you say that consciousness and matter both are real, and this world is the interplay of consciousness and matter, in which both of these are eternal. Like, for example, if you chance to read Patanjali's Yoga Darshan, the Raj Yoga, we have those talks on YouTube, Raj Yoga. Now, in Raj Yoga, because Raj Yoga borrows its philosophy from Sankhya, consciousness and matter, these are like two streams running eternally till eternity. Whenever they meet, there is creation. And then they will say that consciousness is individual. So it's stream of consciousness. Now, stream of consciousness has come in Buddhism, whatever they mean. Believe me, I don't trust these philosophers. And the previous talk was on demolishing Buddhism. So one gentleman wrote to me in anger, why do you criticize Buddhism, which is religion of Indian origin? If you have to criticize Islam. Why should I be criticizing this or that? See, I have the highest regard for Islam, and I also have the highest regard for Buddhism as far as spirituality is concerned, as far as their masters are concerned. Uh, let's not get into controversy. Here we are discussing philosophy. Any philosophy which is dualist has these limitations. And Buddhists who are not dualists, they have certain problems which was discussed in the previous talk. So now we come to this, that if you say that this world is also eternal, then there will be two very serious problems. If you, I hope I am clear, because see, being a teacher, I always have a little lack of confidence on what I am telling and what you might be understanding. It's the job of the teacher to make ideas clear. Vedanta is here countering the dualists. According to dualists, there will be two realities. Most important of these dualists are the Sankhya, whose philosophy has been taken up by Yoga. That is consciousness and matter, or oblique energy. Matter and energy, they are same. So consciousness and matter, they are like two streams, not parallel, two streams running independently, once in a while coming together, and there is creation, and then they separate again. The serious problem with this, extremely serious problem, will be that world will never cease to exist because Prakriti is eternal. Now, you might suddenly say that you might bring some argument here regarding this. Please keep in mind we are discussing Vedanta versus Sankhya. Sometimes we have this problem, particularly people who are not deep into philosophy. Those who are not deep into philosophy, they have this problem that you have demolished someone, you have demolished some philosophy, and now you're demolishing certain other philosophy, their basic tenets, and suddenly they will jump up and say that, well, this does not fit, without realizing that when you counter a particular philosophy, you are countering their chief tenets based on their fundamental premises. We actually, we are somehow, we have not learned the art of arguing. It's very difficult to come across somebody who can really argue well. It's not about winning an argument, it's about being consistent, it is about being logical, rational. If Prakriti is eternal, that means it was there in the past, it is there, and it will continue to be. In that case, the world will never cease to exist. Now, these philosophies, Sankhya and Yoga, they are based on the Ved. This is a very, very, very important thing. Absolutely crucial and central to our argument. Buddhism is not. Islam is not. Some other philosophies, they are not. Materialistic philosophy is not. So we are not discussing that. We are discussing only Sankhya, Yoga, or any other dualistic philosophy, even Nyaya. Now, since Sankhya is based on Vedas, and Vedas talk about mukti, liberation. Now, what you are saying will go against the Veda. Whatever the Veda wants to say, Veda is all about mukti. Veda is all about getting out of the cycle of birth and death. But Prakriti being eternal, the world will always be there, the universe will always be there. It may go away, but it will come back. And worse, moksha, that is liberation, will become a caused entity. That means it will have a beginning. And now, because it's a caused entity, it cannot be eternal. Uh, it's a very tricky argument, but beautiful, it's profound, sublime. Believe me, I am not really a student of philosophy, but I've dabbled a little bit here, a little bit there. You cannot have a better philosophy than Vedanta. Simply says that anything that is caused, that means it has a beginning. For example, our Sankhya, that is the main philosophy. So, Sankhya says that once Purush, that is soul, Atman, realizes its true nature, it will attain its freedom. That means freedom was caused at some point of time. If it was caused at some point of time, and before that it was not existing, that means by its very definition, moksha is not eternal. Because for something to be eternal, it has to be there in the past, present, and future. Now, moksha is caused. If moksha is caused, then it cannot be eternal. Now, what happens that they bring arguments like abhava. Now, abhava plays a very important role in philosophy. Abhava means non existence. For example, here is this pen, and I say that there is not an elephant. There is no elephant in this pen. There is no elephant on this pen. This is abhav. In certain philosophy, it's considered to be just one of the knowledge that we get through our senses. But in Vedanta, this is an independent method of knowledge. Now, when you bring in abhav, there is one particular abhav. Here is this pen. I break into pieces, complete pieces. Pen is destroyed. Now, this destruction is permanent. It is caused, destruction is caused, yet it is permanent. So, when Vedanta says that if something which has been caused cannot be eternal, it's countered. But mind it, this is an abhav, this is an absence. But moksha is not an abhav. By its very definition, by its very nature, it is something which is real. So these things play a very important role. So you cannot compare a positive thing with a negative thing. No, it cannot be done. Thus, if this world is real, if the mind is real, then the world will never cease to exist. And moksha, which is the ultimate aim of all the Veda, Upanishads, etc., that itself will become non eternal. And when we use the word mukti, when we use the word freedom, liberation, it means that you are liberated forever. But Prakriti being there, you can always be trapped once again. The very definition of moksha will be compromised forever. I hope the idea is clear. Our This is what Acharya Shankar says in his commentary. Another antavatvam cha sangsarasya cha setsyati anantata chadi mato mokshasya na bhavishyati. If, as the dualist contend, the world is beginningless, like mind is beginningless, then it cannot be non-eternal. Moksha cannot have a beginning and be eternal. Moksha is eternal. So you cannot say that it has a beginning. So these are the two major problems that comes before us if we consider mind to be eternal, if we consider the world to be eternal. And the problem doesn't stop here, it continues. Mandukya Karika brings two verses from what had been earlier. Adavante choyannasti bartumane tattata vitate sadrisha santo vitata iva lakshita. I told you this is my very favorite verse. If a thing is non-existence in the beginning and in the end, it is non-existent in the middle too. It has to be. See, those of you who have some interest in quantum physics, don't forget, don't go for the technical things. I'm talking about the general things. I also read only the general things. I don't understand the technical things. So confusing. Quantum physics keep talking about something coming out of nothing. And they use terms like counterintuitive, etc. We don't know. We don't know if they are correct. We don't know what future will say about that. But the argument, the way argument is going in Mandukya, if a thing was not there in the past and if it will not be in future, then its existence in between is questionable. In Gita, this argument is used in a different way. Before my birth, I did not exist. After my death, I will not exist. So why bother for some few years? Mandukya Karika takes it one step forward, says, I was not there before beginning, before my birth. I will not be there after my death. So what proof is there that I exist in the present? Dear listeners, if you think deeply, you will realize that it is not gibberish. It's something very deep, profound. Moksha, which was caused according to the dualists and cannot be eternal, then there is no moksha, there is no mukti. And it kind of becomes a state, it kind of becomes a state, just like waking state, dream state, dreamless state. Forget about being eternal. Forget about being giving you joy and all those things and nirvana and all those. It just becomes a state of mind. In fact, uh, Dvaitavadis, dualists like Madhvacharya, they use this kind of argument against Advaita and say, when you go into samadhi, even if you call it nirvikalpa samadhi, and you are back from there, you are back to this world. So nirvikalpa samadhi is just a state of mind, just like any other state of mind. I don't know why Madhvacharya was using this kind of argument because it doesn't stand to reason. In fact, Madhvacharya himself doesn't stand to reason. Now, I cannot argue with the great philosophers, the great teachers of philosophy, but it's so simple. Once you have realized oneness, there is nothing to argue. The problem is that the great masters, the sages that were there in the past, they realized the oneness. They told it to their disciples. Just think of Sri Ramakrishna. Those of you who have studied the life and words of Sri Ramakrishna would know that he had Nirvikalpa Samadhi. He realized oneness and he talked about that oneness often, not always. Because there was a state which was beyond mind and there was a state which was within mind. So when you are talking about waking state, dreamless state, these belong to the realm of mind. And moksha belongs to the state which is beyond mind. Now, once you have known that and you come back, there's nothing, no problem there. Then you realize that these are one particular kind of state, but that one is an entirely different kind of state. Like those of you who know a bit of physics would know that we have three states: solid, liquid, and gas. There is a fourth state which is known as plasma. It has absolutely no relation with these three. Water can be in all these three states: solid, liquid, gases. Water cannot be in plasma state. Now, when we are using these examples, it does not mean that we are trying to prove something with the help of those examples. Thing is, now supposing I, who has no realization, actually I have no realization. I have some basic understanding. Without books, I won't even be able to talk properly. Now, supposing I get down to writing whatever Sri Ramakrishna experienced and spoke, I'll try to be as rational as possible. I'll try to bring in as many arguments as possible. This is the problem of books like Gaudapada's Karika. Gaudapada is a great sage. He, his teachers, they had that knowledge of oneness. Now, he is trying to put all these things into arguments, which is an impossibility. You are trying to make A common man understand what plasma state is. They cannot understand because it's an entirely different thing. It's something that doesn't belong to this world. You don't on this earth you don't even come across this plasma state. And if moksha is just a state like waking and dream, then moksha is an illusion. In that case, your Ved, taken as four Vedas, your Upanishads, they all become illusory. And no, why moksha? In fact, everything, even devotional literature, they become illusory. If why simply you say that the world is eternal, world has been continuing with God throughout. Mind has been continuing, time has been continuing. If you just admit this, that means if you accept Raj Yoga as a correct philosophy, Yoga as correct philosophy, if you accept Sankhya as correct philosophy, if you accept dualism as a correct philosophy, in that case, the scriptures on which these philosophies are based, those scriptures itself will become invalid. Vedanta, that is Advaita Vedanta, is countering dualism and shows based on these realists. Now, let us not bring here what the materialists say, what we say. We are discussing a particular philosophy, their tenets, and they are being contradicted. So, what is the conclusion? Moksha is not something that is caused. Moksha is eternal. If moksha is eternal, in that case, there never was any bondage, which means mind never exists. It means I am ever free. You are ever free. Mind boggling. Fortunately, it is not counterintuitive, but mind boggling. Just to think that the poor, those who are suffering, those who are having a great time, it is all just illusory. It is very much true. It is very much true for persons who are identifying themselves with mind. But in reality, this is not true. This is one serious allegation that is made against Advaita. That do you mean to say that all these people who are suffering in this world, those who have become orphans, those who are suffering atrocities, is all mithya? No, it's not mithya. Why should it be mithya? If your sense of I is true, then that is also true. The person who is seeing it, if his sense of I is true, then that suffering is also true. And this is what Vedanta says, that person who is suffering and the person who is watching, both of them need to realize first that mind is illusory. They need to realize their oneness with Atman. Then person who is watching and person who has been suffering, both of them will realize that the suffering itself is an illusion. But staying within the mind, you cannot say that. Just like we discussed how Sankhya bases its arguments on Veda and takes up such a stand that the arguments go against the Veda. No, that's not done. On the one hand, you are using the word suffering. This word suffering is directly based on mind. It is related to mind. If mind is true, then suffering is true. The person who is suffering for him. And the person who is watching, For him, suffering is true. But the person who has gone beyond it, he will not see it that way. He will see that, well, it's all illusory. But that person is suffering. He's feeling that pain. For example, sometimes you might have seen kids get nightmares and kids start crying in dreams. So parents sometimes wake them up. Oh, wake up. You're crying too much. You're having a bad dream. Just like that. When people suffer a lot, these masters, they feel that, oh, this person is having tons of nightmares. Let me wake him up. Persons who are having a great time, persons who have lots of wealth and who are into enjoyment, they are having beautiful dreams. They don't want their dreams to break. And that is why religion comes easily to people who are suffering. Religion cannot come to people who are having a gala time. If you are having a gala time, if everything is really going great with you, if you are enjoying life, then accepting religion is difficult for you, because it's like enjoying very good dream. No doubt it is a dream. This world is like a dream, but it's an enjoyable dream. You don't want to wake up. So teacher will say, okay, fine, continue. But if you start suffering and your suffering becomes acute, then the teacher wants to wake you up. All these scriptures are meant for that, to wake you up. Adavante chu yannasti vartamane pi tattata. So, if a thing is non-existent in the beginning and in the end, it is necessarily non-existent in the present. The objects that we see are really like illusions. Still, they are regarded as real. The objects that we see, they're all illusory. Yet, we see them as real. This is what mind does. Things that do not exist, they appear to us as real. Sa prajonta tesham swapne vi pratipadyate. Tasmad adyantavatvena mityeva khalu te smrita. The utility of the objects of waking experience is contradicted in dreams. This verse was also discussed earlier in the second chapter. Therefore, they are certainly unreal. Both experiences have a beginning and an end. So, this verse number 31-32 says that the objects that we see in the waking state, that is, perception by the mind, appears to be real. But the fact is, they are as unreal as the objects of a dream. Arguments will now begin. Uh, some of these arguments were used in the second chapter when we were discussing the second chapter, and some arguments will be given here also. So, these two ideas coming from the second chapter, that remember, if mind is real, if this world is real, in that case, world will continue to be real forever. And liberation, moksha, it will be a caused entity. If it's a caused entity, anything which is a caused entity cannot be eternal. That's why those of you who have been reading scriptures, particularly here in this channel, we have been trying to cover as many scriptures, and the arguments that are used to explain them. One a very important argument as far as moksha is concerned, said to be no amount of religious activities, that is, rituals, can give you liberation. No scriptural study. And if you are doing japam, it cannot lead you to mukti. Dhyana cannot lead you to mukti because these are cause. Now, if moksha is an effect of these causes, in that case, moksha will become non-eternal. Moksha, liberation is eternal. We are already free. We are always free. We are just thinking that we are bound. This is what Mandukya Karika is trying to do, trying to make us understand that you think that you are bound, but actually you are not bound. You are free. You are always free. You will continue to be free. Give up this illusion and wake up. How? सर्वे धर्मा मृषा स्वप्ने कायास्यांतर निर्दर्शनात् संप्रते अस्मिन् प्रदेशे वै भूतानां दर्शनम कुतः begins a series of arguments through which it is shown that the waking state is as unreal as dream state. So all entities seen in dreams are unreal because they are perceived inside the body, inside the mind. When we sleep, we see that we have gone to that place. We see that we have met this person. But everything is within this mind. In a limited space, because we know that our body and mind is limited. So here I am sitting in Kolkata and I dream that I have been to Delhi. How can that distance be squeezed within this body? It's not possible. So we say that it is unreal. So really, to exist in Brahman, which is indivisible and homogeneous. Now, Ajatvad, there is no creation, is being further explained. The important thing is that whenever we say that dream is illusory, whenever we say dream is illusory, we say it from the standpoint of the waking state. Had there been no waking state, there will never be the idea of illusion as far as dream is concerned. For example, a person, you might have heard of some people who are maintained, say, in semi-coma state or coma state for many years. We don't know exactly what happens to them in that state. They must be thinking something. They might be dreaming something, and they will never know that it's all unreal. For them, it is real, very much real. If you sleep for a longer period, your dream continues for a longer period, and reality of the dream continues for a longer period. And second thing that you realize that it takes within a body, because it takes place. Dream takes place within the body, so you think that it is false. Because hugeness of an elephant cannot be confined within my body, and hugeness of distances cannot be confined within my body. But what is waking state? You might remember when we began our talks, really in the beginning, and there we were discussing three aspects of Brahman, and there is Virat. Virat is consciousness, pure consciousness, which identifies itself with the sum total of the gross bodies in the universe. Virat is God, is one aspect of God. Sum total of gross bodies, not only of this earth, but of the entire universe. What happens during waking state? Things are happening within the body of Virat. There is one movie, Matrix. I've not seen it. Many friends asked me to see, but then these things, these things are so much of make believe thing that it's difficult for me to take there, to apply my mind there. Think of two persons. For example, think of yourself and me. We are two different persons. You can easily, since you are watching me, you can distinctly think of me and you. Now, whatever I am dreaming is different from what you dream, isn't it? Your dream is your personal experience, which we will discuss again. Your dream is a personal experience. My dream is a personal experience. Now, it cannot be that in my case it is false and in your case it is real. Dream is illusion in my case as also in your case. Now, it was described in the beginning that sum total of the gross bodies identifying with consciousness is the other way. Consciousness identifies with the gross bodies. Everything is happening within this body, isn't it? Think of yourself and God. Instead of me, now you think of God. This sum total of gross bodies. Whatever is happening, here I move this pen. Where is this pen moving? Within the body of Virat. Does it have a real existence then? How can it be? Because this too is moving within the body of Virat. The most important argument is squeezed within the body. So, waking state, my waking state, your waking state, everyone's waking state is squeezed within the space of the body of Virat. And by similar argument, waking state has to be as unreal, as illusory as dream. What is dream to me is waking state to Virat. So ultimately, it cannot be real. For a thing to be real, it cannot be within anyone's body. Within my body, within your body, no one's body. And these cannot exist within the body of Brahman because Sir says Brahman. Brahman is not a compound. Brahman is not a compound. Brahman is homogeneous. Consciousness is homogeneous. So you cannot expect that the body of Brahman will have this microphone and this. No, it's not possible. So it is the consciousness which associates itself with the sum total of gross bodies. Existence lies there. So all these existence, they do not belong to consciousness. Actually, they belong to the gross body of Virat. And these are as unreal. For the simple reason that these belong to the body of someone, within the body of someone. The important characteristic of dream belonging to a particular body was discussed. And based on that, it was shown how waking state also takes place within the body of Virat. Verse number 34. Na yuktam darshanam gatva kalasya niyamad gato pratibuddhasya vai sarvas tasmin deshe na vidyate. Verse number 34. Now, it's not reasonable to think that a dreamer actually goes out in order to experience the objects seen in the dream. No one goes out to what one sees in the dream. Because of the discrepancy of the time involved, earlier it was space involved, now it is time involved in such a journey. Nor does he, when awakened, find himself the places seen in the dream. First one was based on space, now it is based on time. Assuming that when you were dreaming, you went out. But how can you go out? How can you cover such long distances in such a short time? More importantly, when you wake up, you don't find yourself in those places. So notion of time and notion of space is illusory in dream. Brahman transcends time. This is something we have explained many times. Brahman is beyond mind, Brahman is beyond time. So the idea that one can attain mukti after death by going to this lok and to that lok and to Brahma lok is all erroneous. Those of you who have studied Gita, particularly 8th chapter, we have talks on Gita too. There it says that people who do noble acts and they go to Brahma lok and from there they can attain mukti. People who have intense devotion in Bhakti Shastra, it says that Brahman is beyond time and space. So the idea that you do some noble acts, you do some great sadhana, and you go somewhere after death and wait there, and after a particular time you will move. This is erroneous because there is no time in Brahman. In Brahman, there is no time, no concept of time. So the idea that you can have mukti after a certain period, this is meaningless. What does it imply? But there are people who love God. There are people who expect that God will grant them mukti. How it happens? It happens because there is no bondage. It happens because there is no lok. Now, when we say there is no lok, say like Brahma lok, we mean to say that in reality they do not exist. These are all manufacture of the mind. Mind itself is unreal. Because mind is unreal, all these ideas, although they appear to be real, but actually they are not real. When you look at time and space from the standpoint of Brahman, they're all unreal. Problem is we are looking at time and space from the standpoint of our mind. And that is why time and space appear to be real. And when we compare this real time and space with the time and space of the dream state, we feel that dream state is unreal. Same thing happens. Anyone, a Brahmagyani, a person who has realized Brahman, person who has Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when he looks back, he realizes that time and space of the waking state was as unreal as the time and space of the dream state. But then this creates very serious problems. मित्रादि से समंत्र्य संबुद्धो न प्रपद्यते गृहीतम चापि यत किंचित प्रति बुद्धो न पश्यति. This is verse number 35. It says, the dreamer, after awaking, realizes the illusoriness of the conversations he had with friends. Sometimes you might see that you are having conversation with your friends and you realize nothing was such. Further, he does not possess in the waking state anything he acquired while dreaming. You can dream of having achieved this, having achieved that, but when you wake up, you find that there's nothing. Now, this creates actually a very serious problem. And it is, you acquired something, and when you wake up, you realize that it's not there. What about scriptural discussions? We are studying all this. People practice rituals. People study scriptures. Aren't they also unreal? Because the conversations that you had in dream state, you realize that they are of no use when you wake up. If this world is unreal, then what happens to all these scriptural studies, etc.? Says, indeed, Indeed, it is all unreal. In fact, this problem has been taken up by Shankaracharya while commenting at different places. He says why it's needed. He said, people, people who are ignorant, people who do not want to get into spiritual life, for them, scriptures are meaningless. And those who have realized it, for them also it is meaningless. But there are people, there are people who want to attain knowledge of Brahman. For them it's mandatory. But you are saying that what you do here is meaningless. How will scriptures help? How will the study of Gita, how the study of Upanishads will help? How Jap Dhyan can help? For example, just now we said that Mukti cannot be a product of Jap Dhyan. Mukti cannot be a product of even of Samadhi. Then why study scriptures? Why practice rituals? Why do Jap Dhyan? Because any act performed in dream state is useless in the waking state. The idea is that, and this is a very important point, any religious act that you do, whether you are performing a ritual or you are studying books or you are performing japam, you are performing meditation, you have to be always conscious of the fact that Brahman alone exists. For the devotees, think of a Krishna devotee. Think of somebody who is a Krishna devotee. Now, if he thinks that by studying Bhagavatam he will attain Krishna, he will attain Krishna consciousness, is a new term. No, he cannot. There is no way. Because if by studying Bhagavatam you attain to the state of Krishna, whatever that might mean, it will be contradiction in terms. Then Lord Krishna himself becomes a product of some cause. So, how to do it? You have to treat Bhagavatam as Holy Krishna. You have to treat the study of Bhagavatam as Holy Krishna. You have to treat the devotees of Lord Krishna as Lord Krishna. A beautiful expression in Vaishnava tradition, which Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Bhagavat Bhakta Bhagavan. They're one and the same. In Gita, we have Brahmarpanam, Brahmavi, Brahmagno, Brahmanautam. When you perform yajna, everything is Brahman. Dear listeners, if you want to make use of all these things that we are studying in spiritual life, then you have to be always conscious of the fact every act you perform, not only spiritual, even the ordinary ones, they have to be directly related to your chosen ideal. If you want to go into, say, the realization of absolute, realization of non-dual consciousness, you have to keep in mind all the time that it's all non-dual consciousness. I am one with that non-dual consciousness. It's unfortunate that I am stuck with this illusion. Similarly, if you are a devotee of, say, Lord Shiva, you do the same thing. The books I study, they are Lord Shiva. The words that I read in those scriptures, these are the words of Lord Shiva himself. And when I study, I am worshipping Lord Shiva. I am filled with Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva fills this universe. Unless this is the attitude, unless this is the outlook, study of scriptures, performance of rituals have absolutely no consequence. It doesn't help you. And that's why you will see that in every religion there are people who are into 1,000 things. They perform so many rituals. And see, when you perform some rituals, when you study books, they will always give you some psychic energy, no doubt about it. But the ultimate result of God realization, the ultimate result of realization of the non-dual state can never be attained. The mind has to be seen as illusory. Everything within the realm of mind is illusory. However, the way out of this illusion is the mind. The way out is everything that belongs to the mind. In earlier times, in villages, sometimes a thorn would prick. People used to walk barefoot, and then you had to take one thorn and take it out and throw both of them. You have to use mind, you have to use scriptures to get out of it. But the idea has to be always that whatever I am performing, my very idea, my very mind is one with indivisible consciousness. So, well, concludes verse number 36. Swapne चा वस्तुकः कायः पृथग् अन्यस्य दर्शनात् यथा कायस्तथा सर्वं चित्त दृश्यम avastukam. Says the dream body is unsubstantial because the other, that is the physical body, different from it is perceived. Like the dream body, all things cognized by the mind are unsubstantial. The dream is illusory. Not only dream is illusory, everything that this mind perceives is an illusion because mind itself is an illusion. Any perception by mind is mithya. Now, this will have a very thorough discussion why every perception by mind is mithya, illusory. We'll continue in the next talk. Thank you so much. Om Shanti Shanti.